Have you ever wondered how an idea, just a philosophy, can turn into a political strategy so powerful it could challenge the biggest empire on Earth? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dive into today. We're looking at Mahatma Gandhi and how he methodically, almost scientifically, built a movement that changed the course of history. And it all really boils down to one huge question.
I mean, really think about that. How is that even possible? The answer isn't about weapons or armies. It's about a revolutionary concept, a new kind of weapon that Gandhi tested, refined, and perfected over decades. A weapon the world had never really seen used on this scale before.
And this is it, Satyagraha. It literally means truth force. Now, the key thing to get here is that this is not passive resistance. Gandhi thought of that as a weapon of the weak. No, Satyagraha is an active, confrontational strategy. It's designed to awaken the conscience of your opponent through your own self-suffering. The goal isn't to force them to submit, it's to convert them, to make them see the truth of your cause. It's a weapon of the strong.
So where did this incredible idea come from? You might think it was born in India, but nope, it was forged in the fires of South Africa. For over 20 years, that's where Gandhi's political laboratory was. It's where he first tested his hypotheses and put this radical theory into practice.
You can just see the evolution on this timeline. He shows up in 1893, has that infamous, humiliating experience of being thrown off a train, and for more than a decade, he's a moderate. He writes petitions, he believes in the British system of justice, but then 1906 happens. A discriminatory law is passed, and something just clicks. The community decides to openly defy it, and right there, Satyagraha is born. Fast forward to 1913, and he's leading thousands of miners on a mass march. He went from a lawyer writing polite letters to a leader of the people. So after 2 decades of honing his strategy in South Africa, Gandhi comes back to India. But he doesn't just launch a massive nationwide protest. No, like a careful scientist, he starts small. He conducts 3 controlled local experiments to see if his truth force would actually work in the unique context of India.
First up, Champaran in 1917. The problem here was this really exploitative system forcing poor farmers to grow indigo for British planters. The authorities told Gandhi to get out of town, and his response was so simple but so revolutionary. He just said no. He refused to leave. This was the first real act of civil disobedience in India, and guess what? It worked. The government had to back down, and the whole oppressive system was eventually abolished.
Next experiment, Ahmedabad. Here he introduces another powerful tool, the political hunger strike. But what's so fascinating is who the fast was aimed at. You'd think it was to pressure the mill owners, right? Wrong. Gandhi said he was fasting to strengthen the resolve of the striking workers themselves. It was a move to unify his own side, which in turn put this unbearable moral pressure on the opposition. And it worked, securing a big wage hike for the workers.
And the third test was in Kheda, also in 1918. The farmers' crops had failed, which meant they were legally entitled to have their taxes waived, but the government refused. So Gandhi's advice was simple: don't cooperate, just don't pay. This was the first real non-cooperation movement, and it was brilliantly organized by a leader who would become an absolute giant of the movement, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel.
This map just ties it all together perfectly. You can see the locations of these 3 crucial pilot programs: Champaran, Ahmedabad, and Kheda. Together, they prove that civil disobedience, the hunger strike, and non-cooperation were incredibly powerful tools. The hypothesis was confirmed. Now it was time to scale up.
Okay, so the local tests were a massive success. Gandhi now knew his methods worked on Indian soil. So what's next? You go big. You take the fight national. This next phase saw 3 huge all-India movements, and each one raised the stakes in the challenge against the British Empire.
And this table is a fantastic way to see that escalation. Just look at the objective. In 1920, it's Swaraj, or self-government. By 1930, it's Purna Swaraj. We're talking complete independence. The methods also get more intense. It goes from boycotting schools and courts to actively breaking specific laws like the famous Salt Law, and finally to the do-or-die call of the Quit India movement, which just exploded into spontaneous protests across the country.
So all this pressure from the streets, from millions of people mobilizing, it had a very clear result. It dragged the British to the negotiating table, whether they liked it or not. The fight started to shift from the villages and cities to the conference rooms in Delhi and London.
A huge moment here was the Gandhi-Irwin Pact in 1931. This was a big deal because for the first time, the Viceroy, the head of the British government in India, was negotiating with the Indian National Congress as an equal.
The government agreed to release political prisoners, and in return, Congress called off the movement. But, and this is a huge but, look at that last point. Irwin refused to save the revolutionary hero Bhagat Singh from being executed. That decision caused a lot of anger, especially among the youth.
Then came a crisis that Gandhi saw as a threat to the very idea of India. The British proposed something called the Communal Award. The key part was offering separate electorates to the depressed classes, what we'd now call Dalits. This meant they would vote in totally separate elections, which Gandhi feared would permanently divide them from the rest of Hindu society. He saw it as a tactic to fracture India, so he began a fast unto death to stop it. This led to the Pune Pact. It threw out separate electorates but created reserved seats within a single unified election. This guaranteed representation and actually gave them more seats while keeping the electorate from being split apart.
The last decade of the struggle was completely upended by a global event, the Second World War. The war basically broke the back of the British Empire, financially and morally. And after that, the dominoes just started to fall, one after another, leading straight to India's freedom. I mean, just look at the speed of events on this timeline. You've got the August Offer, the Cripps Mission, the Wavell Plan, the Cabinet Mission, and finally, the Mountbatten Plan. It's just bang, 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 one proposal after another. The British weren't debating if they should leave anymore. The only question was how to leave.
And this was it, the final, tragic blueprint. The Mountbatten Plan laid it out in no uncertain terms. British India would be partitioned, Punjab and Bengal would be cut in half, and a boundary commission, led by a British lawyer named Cyril Radcliffe, who had literally never been to India before, would draw the lines that would decide the fate of millions of people.
And this map, this is the result, the Radcliffe Line. In what has to be one of the most chaotic and tragic decisions of the 20th century, the final borders weren't even published until August 17th. That's 2 full days after independence was declared. Millions of people woke up to find they were on the wrong side of a border they never even knew existed.
So there you have it, right? Satyagraha puts pressure on the British, a weakened empire gives in, and India is free. Case closed? Well, history is never quite that simple. We have to ask a really important question. Was the Gandhian way the only thing that made this happen?
Because happening at the same time, there was another completely different freedom struggle going on. Subhash Chandra Bose's Indian National Army, the INA, actually took up arms and fought the British. Now, they lost on the battlefield, but what happened after is the crucial part. The British put 3 INA officers on trial for treason, a Hindu, a Muslim, and a Sikh, and the entire country exploded in their support. Those trials did more damage to British rule than any battle because they destroyed the one thing the empire absolutely depended on, the loyalty of the Indian soldier. You simply cannot rule a subcontinent of millions if your own army might turn against you.
So we end with this really complex legacy. If Gandhi's nonviolent movements were what forced the British to sit down and negotiate, was it the simmering threat of a full-blown armed rebellion sparked by the INA that gave them the final push out the door? The truth is, it was probably a combination of both, leaving us with a powerful and deeply contested story of how a nation finally won its freedom.